it's okay.
Yeah, was it a military funeral?
No, I can look down.
I'm surprised because he was a full birth colonel.
Well, at the
Graveside.
at the graveside, there were military honors.
Well, good, because he needed to be honored. Not, I remember him through my father, but Sean knew him when he came here, but not very many people that are still out there remember him, but he was the state air surgeon for many years.
Here we are in the 5th week of Lent, and no, this is our last time together. Because the next sessions in the book you can read on your own, but it's Palm Sunday, and then there's one for each day of Holy Week, Thursday, Monday, Thursday, Good Friday, and Easter. And I do have, I started last Sunday teaching at Second Presbyterian. And I'm only doing the last 2, so I'm doing Palm Sunday there. So, they had their handouts printed ahead of time. So if anybody wants one of the lovely, Palm Sunday ones, I'll put them right up here on the table. You can take one when you leave if you'd like a handout.
Your handouts have been so good.
Aren't they
Haven't they
great?
been great?
Yeah, I'll tell our artist, our California lead.
I'm so sorry, I missed the cellist.
Oh,
I heard
no.
Do you want to say a few words about the cellist to, Guy, your experience of Julie, Tanner?
Fantastic.
Really added to
Yeah,
the whole evening, and they coordinated beautifully off each other and taught well together. It was lovely.
Well, I was telling my friend Sarah Tanzer was here last week. McCormick professor that I, came and back when those days when there was all men and all white guys and me. And, and Sarah was one of the first women that they hired. So I wasn't the only woman on the faculty. Judaic and Christian origins, but New Testament is her field. So but her work at Harvard was on the Hodiot, on the Psalms, from the Qumran community. So she has some love of the Psalms. So she was with us last week. So Julie, I told her, I said, it's rare that you just teach with somebody the first time and it's seamless. And that's the way I felt with Julie. We would get together, we got together and planned, of course, and then she offered things and I said yes. And, so we had 4 pieces of music. And cello, it was, Going Home was from the, New World Symphony. Was
yeah.
Last piece,
Love that piece.
and Bridget's back, but you got one of her sessions,
I
right?
did, first time.
I've never taught with a musician before.
One of the major takeaways was how, at least she reminded or taught, how the songs get reframed into song and into the music in the ways in which that itself is its own brilliant interpretation as we read along with these other brilliant interpreters.
Right, right.
And then to hear it being so expressive through the cello, and it was just quite a wonderful multi-sensory experience.
It was. When I went to her house so she could play the pieces for me, that she was wanting to play here. And I'm just sitting in her living room with her cats roaming around. And I just was so blown away by the range of that cello, the deep bass sounds, but then when she would do chords, and she said it was a great instrument to have when she played with the symphony, because it really could, what did she say? It really worked well in that in that symphony setting, that kind of her cello. So, very generous, very generous. So tonight we've been thinking about all these different kinds of psalms and looking at words like paths and faces and blessing and tables. Last week, Psalm 23. And one of the things that I love what she did was she said, I wrote a connection with Psalm 23. I have a story about it. And do you think that would work? And I said, yeah, and I think it would evoke other people's experiences of Psalm 23. So she read her psalm, which had to do with, where were they in Scotland?
Yeah.
Scotland when she was a child, and she was told she had to memorize the 23rd Psalm, and she was terrified, and she was 8 years old, and so she wrote this Psalm 23 with kind of like call and response back and forth. from her 8-year-old memory of what it was like, you know.
It was like a story.
It was a story.
It really was recalling all
It
of that
did.
experience.
And I think it did invite us to engage with our own stories with that psalm. So tonight, we're looking at Psalm 130, and it's one of 7 penitential psalms included in the Psalter, and it's been used in liturgies during Lent since the medieval era. It was sung by ancient pilgrims on their way to Jerusalem, and it reminds us of the ways our words and our actions. And you'll see some differences in the ways the word is translated by the different translators and those who paraphrasing the text we're looking at. So, wrongdoing, sins, or the record of our guilt, and how these things separate us from God. The kind of focus word that I picked up on in this song was waiting. And so I thought we would begin with just some of your own responses to or reactions to what are some of your own experiences of waiting. I guess you're waiting to get your ears so you can hear. Right? Can you hear me?
Barely.
So waiting to get your ears unstopped.
Waiting for test results for illness.
Waiting for test results.
One of my children lives in San Francisco and the other lives in Gothenburg, Sweden. The one in Gothenburg, Sweden is married to a Swede and has our 3 grandchildren. And so, you know, as soon as we put them on the airplane, I'm waiting again for the next time I'm
Yeah.
gonna see these people. I mean, thanks to technology, we do get
Yeah.
to see them, but it's not the same.
Right, yeah, waiting till next time to be in person.
Yeah.
When we flew into London, we flew through London to Lisbon. And it was the foggiest I have ever seen an airport. We literally could not see the ground until we landed. And because of that, there was a 4-hour delay. When we missed some things that we had planned in London, and just sort of that waiting, when are we gonna get off the ground? When are we gonna, get back in the air? And I don't do waiting really well.
One of the hardest things I think of waiting is when you have a loved one that's ill and you are at the hospital and, you know, I know that the end's coming but you know to anticipate, but yet the waiting of actual their relief of, you know, of being out of their pain and their
Right.
misery and their illness, but for you, it's just like, I don't want it to happen, but yet I know it needs to, but Lord, get it done. I mean,
Yeah.
isn't it awful? I mean, you know, you feel like you can't wait much longer for it to be over. I mean,
Yeah, right.
that's terrible to say, but
I am, anybody else waiting, experiencing waiting?
About waiting to hear about that next job, or waiting with somebody who's, looking for that next job, and
Right.
especially when it's, for a person which is the sole income.
Sure.
waiting for a baby to be born when you can't be at the hospital during COVID.
Right. I had to get a medical test done this week, a simple medical test, no big deal. And but you know, I'm like, Guy, I just don't wait well. I've got a book on my phone, and I took my knitting. And I mean, if there was a third thing I could have put in my bag, I would have taken it. I'm prepared for all occasions. And what if the book I have, it's not the one I want to read, but I can always knit. Blah, blah, blah. I wrote about this in the book. I was really put to the test with my waiting ability when that storm came through Memphis years ago, those flatline winds. And my brother called me and said, our mother is sitting in the dark in her house. She has no power. And oh, by the way, the dog that she got pulled her down, and she's broken her wrist. So she's, so, you know, it fell my lot to be the one of the 4 of us to get there as fast as I could, driving from Chicago. And I, I walked in and it's, 102. It's Memphis. It's Memphis, the end of July, when we think humidity is bad here. I don't know why, but it's worse there. Yeah, and
On the river.
on the river, yeah, and no power, and she's sitting there in the dark and in pain thankfully, my sister who couldn't come from here sent her son and her husband with a generator, and I thought, well, oh, great, but she insisted on hooking up. They only had 3 things we could plug, a plug for 3 things, I think, or maybe 2. The freezer had to be one of them.
Yeah.
Had to be one of them, and we can let the freezer go. It's probably just beans, we can. She was not amused, So, we had a coffee pot or the TV, and then I went out to get a fan. I bought the fan that was the size of the table, but I am not gonna be on again, like, it was so bad, but I learned, and sometimes another waiting is waiting with a person, like you've said, in hospitals or other places, but waiting, waiting for, I call it Mimi time. We call her Mimi. It was not my time. It was not Chronos time anymore. I had to let that go. It's Kairos time. I had to get in Mimi time, which was slower and more deliberate. And whenever I went there, it was like, my sister would call me and say, how are you? I said, well, I'm on Mimi time now, and trying not to, get my impulsive self with all this, inability to wait, and just, just to try and bathe her with a wrist that hasn't even been cast yet, because it's still swollen, the pain that she's in, and we're bathing by candlelight, and and my ex-Marine cousins tell me, oh, I'm bringing you a grill so you can grill outside. And I'm thinking, it's 102. You think I'm gonna get by a hot fire, He's just trying to help, waiting and, waiting to get gas to run the generator. I learned a lot that trip about things that I didn't think I could do. This psalm, I thought, the idea of waiting that came to me through this psalm, I thought was nice, as we can bring the 5 weeks of Lent to a close, because, each week we're waiting for that great celebration. It's kind of fun to drive around town and see how all the different churches are advertising Easter. It's amazing to me. I'm surprised there's not a big bunny hopping around out there. It's a lot about, egg extravaganza. And it's like, I love eggs. I love Easter eggs. I have them in my house. I've even put them in before Easter, but oh my Lord, it is a bit, seems to me sometimes over the top here, but there are other things on Easter too going on. Imagine for a moment that you're in a crowd of ancient pilgrims and you're going towards Jerusalem, climbing the hill to celebrate a religious festival, to commemorate like Sukkot, to commemorate Israel's time in the wilderness following the Exodus, and that particular festival marks the fall harvest. So you would be singing Psalm 130 as you made your way. Yes, and it's called, these are one of the 15 Psalms of Ascent, or Psalms of Ascent, found in the latter part of the book of Psalms. They were called Ascent because of their reference to Jerusalem and Zion. So if Jerusalem is on a hill, the pilgrims would make their way, and they would repeat these shorter Psalms, and this is one of our nice shorter Psalms, from memory, or they would sing them. And these Psalms reflect the diversity of the pilgrims' voices. So just like all of our different experiences of waiting call up different memories and different experiences. So their individual and communal laments could be hymns of thanksgiving, or wisdom psalms, or royal psalms focusing on the king, or like this one, these particular penitential psalms. So we hear a singular voice expressing her lament to God. And I'd like to have it read in like, it's only eight verses, so let's have it read. Somebody read 1 and 2, and somebody read 3 and 4, and then 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. And maybe just after you read it, just pause for a minute and let's listen to see what's going on. It's getting a little warm in here, or is it just me? Okay, who's got, 1 and 2? I think, what do I have in the book? I think I have Guy's favorite. Just for you, Guy in English.
Actually, I have
Are you
a,
coming around?
no, I'm kind of grumpy about the NRSV.
Oh, you're grumpy about the NRSV?
Yeah, the RSV has plenteous redemption.
Uh-huh,
And the NRSV has translated that great power to redeem.
uh-huh.
And I think they've taken the poetry out of
Take
the
the
song.
poetry.
I
Wow.
want my plenteous redemption, you know,
That sounds more like he's.
yeah.
Paul Franklin, when we were working on the Common English Bible, he would say, don't flatten the metaphor.
Yeah.
He would always, it was his, like his mantra, don't flatten, when talking to translators, don't flatten the metaphor. Okay, oh, the last 2 weeks, Julie liked to read from,
King James.
no, what was the translation she read from, you may remember? It's old. I'll think of it 30 minutes from now. Nobody remembers it.
The American Standard,
What?
that American Standard.
No. It wasn't that one.
Or English Standard.
No, it was a name, somebody's name.
The Phillips, not the
No.
Phillips, that's just New
Okay, I'll
Testament.
think of
The
it later.
good news,
What?
was it the good news?
No.
That came out when I
What
was
good
in
news?
Baylor, and
No,
that was a trend
Yeah,
among
right,
the
right.
Baptists at
With the
Baylor.
stick figures.
right. So, somebody can read, Common English, and then you've got NRSVs on your table, and if there's anything else you want to pull up on your phone, you can. So let's hear, verses, 1 and 2.
I cry out to you from the depths, Lord. My Lord, listen to my voice. Let your ears pay close attention to my request for mercy.
So what's going on in verses 1 and 2?
Despair to me, that's what I cry out to you.
From the depths, from despair.
De profundis.
So, and a very, very strong request, listen to my voice, a petition to God. And what is what are they, Pam, read the last part of verse 2.
Let your ears pay close attention to my request for mercy.
Okay, I'm always intrigued with how the words get translated. It's mercy and CED as well, so, all right, somebody read 3 and 4?
If you kept track of sins, Lord, my Lord, who would stand a chance? But forgiveness is with you. That's why you are honored.
Is there much difference with NRSV, in that? Anybody NRSV? Is sins the
Feared instead of honored.
revered? Okay, sins is what sins used?
No.
What?
Iniquity.
Iniquities, okay, okay. The iniquities in the NRSV, and UE updated edition, and CEB is sins. In her commentary on this psalm, this is a wisdom commentary series, that I've found that I really like a lot. Do you like? I just wish they'd get the first book. There's 3 books for Psalms. They've never done the first book.
Oh, wow.
Volume 2 and 3 are out, but not for the first one, which, yeah, it's kind of weird. Nancy DeClass Walford wrote notes that the word iniquities in Hebrew is used 200 times in the Old Testament to describe the sins of humans. And the root meaning of the word, which I really think is interesting, is to bend, curve, turn aside, or twist. Thus providing a concrete image for a definition of iniquity as an act or a mistake which is not right or just. So kind of a really interesting. I mean,
It
we're so
also
used to.
sounds like turning from God.
Bending, turning, twisting, or turning. It could also be your own bending, turning, twisting from what you know to be.
Or turning to what I want.
From what I
Those are
know.
called sin curved inwardness, doesn't it?
Iniquity as an act or a mistake which is not right or is unjust. I think that really opens up that, what we think we know about sin. Okay, let's hear 5 and 6.
I hope, Lord, my whole being hopes, and I wait for God's promise. My whole being waits for my Lord, more than the night watch waits for morning. Yes, more than the night watch waits for morning.
What kind of feelings do you get from these verses?
Like the word soul, for the NRSV.
Yeah, I think
Read NRSV.
Yeah.
We read, God. I wait for the Lord, my soul waits, and in his word I hope. My soul waits for the Lord more than those who watch for the morning, more than those who watch for the morning. The word soul just adds a layer, a sense of depth
Yeah, it does.
in a way that whole being just feels a little bit more superficial. And I know it's not,
Yeah, I
but
know.
I feel like soul just is deep within. Gives me that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I like soul better.
I found myself thinking, I had a job as a night watchman. Actually at seminary, and I'd have to go around the campus checking doors and, in the middle of the night and, just sort of you waiting for that to be over and sun to come and all of that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I watched in the evening news, I like the weather people on Channel 5, and one of them particularly, when he gives the forecast, he says, now, for those of you on the third shift, need to be aware of what, and I'm thinking, third shift, I'm just comfortable in my bed, my dog is snoring, and I don't ever have to think about the third shift, but I always think about that this is a psalm. Is this familiar to you, this psalm? I mean, it's so short. It's really familiar to me. I mean, we must hear it. We must hear it. I guess, we hear it only once, but I love that repetition. My soul waits for the Lord more than what is it in the RSV? More than the night watch waits for morning.
More than
More
watchman
than
waits.
those
More than
who watch.
wait for the morning. So that repetition,
For me, back to NRSV, the more than those who watch for the morning, it reminds me when I did, my CPE credit and had the overnight shift as chaplain. And so much happens at night and you have to be alert enough so that when the beeper goes off, you can go where you need to go. But the desperation for the morning to come, once you can rest, but it's just, there's a whole new world that enters the hospital, or a whole new world of things it feels like that happens in the hospital in
Yeah.
those wee hours. And
yeah.
it's just kind of a little bit of an anxious anticipation for that morning to show.
So it's a waiting that is filled with some of that anxiousness. When you think about your own body, sometimes when your body's at rest, that's when a pain pops up and it's just so, you just wake up and wonder, well, is it gonna go away, or what do I need to do about it? But, it's like your body's at rest, and why is then, is that when your body, wakes you up and says something's wrong here? The last verses, 7 and 8, let's, somebody read those in RSV. Do you have that, Margaret?
Yeah. O Israel, hope in the Lord, for with the Lord there is steadfast love, and with him is great power to redeem. It is he who will redeem Israel from all its iniquities.
So it's interesting how the writer turns, rather than this personal expression, then opens it up to the whole community. Wait for so CEB says, wait for the Lord, and you read hope. You read hope in the Lord. That is so different. Wait for the Lord as opposed to hope in the Lord. And the second line was because steadfast love is with the Lord, something like that. CEB, and we've seen this before in other Psalms, CEB will translate, steadfast love, as faithful love. That's pretty standard with them. The last verse is then broadcast the word to the psalmist and the reminder of God's faithful love to the larger community. So, waiting, the psalmist compares the feeling of waiting for God with the sentinels who stood guard on the third watch, waiting for the light of day and breathing much easier when they knew they had made it safely through another night. Kind of like what you described, Bridget, right? That you'd made it through that night with little sleep, but knowing you had to be on and you had to be there for whatever in a hospital setting. The Hebrew word, I probably will mispronounce it, and I must say, I was just mortified last week that when I had to pronounce a Hebrew word, and there's Sarah Tanger sitting right there, who does Hebrew, and she was my Hebrew teacher, as I said last week. Oh, gee, this is really bad. She's a very forgiving person. The Hebrew word is Yahal, and when used here, invites the pilgrims not only to wait, so in CEB, wait for the Lord, or NRSV, hope in the Lord, right? So it invites not only to wait, but also to hope, to expect something to happen. And that single voice then reminds the faithful pilgrims to wait and hope as they make their way to Jerusalem together. They move closer, and their voices, I can imagine singing, maybe joined together, confident of God's presence with them.
The version I have says, put your hope in the eternal.
Put your hope in the eternal. Verse 7.
Yeah.
What are you reading from?
This is the Moffat.
Moffat, that's it.
Oh.
That was the one. I knew God, that was what, Julie, our cellist loves, the Moffat translation.
I ordered one this week.
Oh, you did?
Oh, really?
Did
Oh,
you-
it's a used version. so it's
Oh,
very
that's what I got.
inexpensive.
I got one too. Yeah.
And
Moffat.
why did you?
Because of this book. Because every time Moffat came up, I thought,
It
I
was Julie,
understand
it was
that.
Julie, the one who said, do you mind if I use Moffat? And I said, no, I haven't. So I did the same thing you did. I just went on Amazon and ordered a used copy, because I just thought, I don't have enough Bibles in my collection. Let's look at our handout. One of the nice things about working with this artist, was that I would send her the chapter and she would read it. So, I love the fact that she would read the chapter and then let the art. So obviously I talk about gardening at the end of the chapter, about waiting for plants, waiting for the cold to settle out of here so I can plant. Actually, did you bring? So, Lane and I were gonna go plant shopping, and I bailed on Saturday because I'm thinking it's gonna be 20 degrees on Monday. Did you put everything inside?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been through that kind of too early. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at these translations and these paraphrase. So we've got Pamela Greenberg. I look for you, my soul looks for you wildly. These are verses 5 and 6. I wait for your word of response. My soul longs for you more than the watchman at the gate longs for morning, more than the tired watchman at the gate longs for the first flicker of dawn. And we've heard in our coming, somebody read Eugene Peterson. Let's see what he says.
I pray to God my life a prayer and wait for what he'll say and do. My life's on the line before God, my Lord, waiting and watching till morning, waiting and watching till morning.
And, the Manhattan Psalter about, such a one of alone. Somebody read that?
I wait and wait, my soul throbs with expectation. I'm like a watcher scanning the horizon for the first light of dawn. No, more intent, more eager.
So we've been hearing some happening with the NRSV, this psalm and these verses. Anything captures your ear in these different translations and paraphrases that you like? Jack?
Liv, there may be a Jewish connection that needs to be underlined here. If this was read at Sukkot, Sukkot is the celebration of the fact that God took care of the people in the wilderness. So you know that God will take care of you. However, the experience of Sukkot is the experience of being in the wilderness and you don't know if you're getting out. God freed you from Egypt and then threw you into this desert where there was absolutely no
No guarantees?
no guarantee for 3 generations. 3 generations that they would ever find a promised land. So there was this constant waiting, and you're waiting through, you're the ones who got free.
Right,
Your children see you die.
Yeah.
Their children see you and their parents die, and God still hasn't answered. It's a long wait that you remember every Sukkot
so this psalm would be read at Sukkot because
of that.
they were waiting.
That's probably where it was constructed, yeah. Yeah,
And this last translation, I wait and wait, my soul throbs with expectation. That's like when you're waiting for somebody to get off the airplane, you know, you're actually throbbing with expectation. I think that's a wonderful translation, but you know, I just read for us all the last 2 verses, 7 and 8, and to me, there's a big switch there between this, which is a very individual sounding, I'm waiting,
that's,
and then verses 7 and 8 is about the whole community,
Right.
the whole people.
Right,
And to me, at least in the NRSV, it sounds like the Lord is actually there all around them. So the hope is in the Lord who is here. With the Lord, there's steadfast love, with him is great power to redeem, and is he who will redeem Israel from all its iniquities. So it feels like, I don't know, I don't read the Hebrew, so that may be wrong. It feels to me like there's a switch in those last 2 verses.
he is the one who will redeem Israel from all of its sin, from all of its iniquities, from all of its turning, all of its twisting, all of its failure to remember. I mean, does this begin to sound familiar? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else have something they really like in these? I also like, I mean, in her paraphrase, the, sister Cologne, it's really, it's very vibrant. My soul throbbed with expectation and, yeah, Jackie.
This translation keeps using the word eternal. Put your hope in the eternal, Israel, for with the eternal there is love. There's a wealth of saving power, for it is he who shall save Israel from all their sins. It moves entirely away from the individual
Yeah.
and entirely away from the immediacy of time.
Is the
It's the
eternal
eternal.
then, another way of speaking about the Lord? Is that what the Moffat translation's doing?
I
Read it
think
again.
it is beyond I think it is,
Larger?
yeah. I think it's much
More
larger.
like rate of time?
It is not a measure of time.
Yeah,
It's
no.
in the eternal.
Yeah. Read it again?
Put your hope in the eternal, Israel, for with the eternal there is love.
Oh,
There is a wealth of saving power, 'Tis he who will save Israel from all their sins.
Israel, wait for the Lord. It sounds
Yeah.
to me like he's using eternal as another way to describe, what, an aspect of God's nature. God is always eternal.
Yeah.
Yeah, we hear of the eternal one.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
I like the word hope better than I do wait. I think hope gives you a positive feeling or a feeling that there's better things to come or something like that. When I think of hope, I think of that old Baptist hymn, my hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness.
Da, 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 da.
And all other things are sinking sand.
Yep, yep, hope.
But it's that hope, that word hope. that
Yeah,
Gives us the, as it says in that, second part of that third one. I hope, Lord, my whole being hopes, and I wait for God's promise. That's what you're hoping for. You're waiting, you're not just waiting for it, but you're hoping. You aren't just hoping, but you're waiting for it too. And that turns the word wait into a more positive term than what we normally think of waiting.
what do you think about the difference between wait and hope?
So it's a Holy Saturday song.
It is. Is
Yeah.
is that when we hear? do we
I
hear
don't know if
Do
it
we
comes
hear
up in the lectionary, but I was in a church one time where we had Saturday evening services,
Uh-huh,
and it fell to me to preach on Holy Saturday.
uh-huh,
What do you say?
yeah, wait and hope.
We're waiting, we're
waiting.
we're in the between time.
I love the Saturday, Holy Saturday service. I went to one when I lived in Chicago at Fourth Pres and started at 10. I remember there was so much snow in the courtyard. They had to bring in a little girl to light, to a fire because, yes, move the snow, but that service just accentuates waiting.
Right.
Called it a vigil.
It's a
Yeah.
vigil.
Yeah.
In the manual, yeah.
A vigil and you enter the darkness and light and, you know, I went once and so, I went once and, you know, it's
And then
kinda
the
late, you
invisible
know. But it's that physical expression of, like you said, on Holy Saturday, waiting and hoping.
Yeah.
In the Episcopal Church, part of the Easter Vigil is, people staying there all night long praying.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And receiving the new confirmands.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Lighting up.
Holy
Sure,
Saturdays when they
sure.
become members.
Right.
I think we got rebaptized.
Uh-huh.
Blessed
Uh-huh.
I like the part of lighting the new fire.
Yeah.
For the candles and for the Paschal candle. That's really something to see that light coming back into the church. Because they don't use the Paschal candle or any candle during Lent.
I also like Pamela Greenberg. I still like her a lot, her translation. My soul looks for you wildly, and I love that last sentence about more than the tired watchman at the gate longs for the first flicker of dawn. Very
Kinda what you were
poetical.
saying. Waiting for the first flicker of dawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go back to the wait, hope.
Yeah,
just a little
yeah,
bit. When I think about the act of waiting, it seems to focus for me on what's happening in process of the internal. And when I think about hope, it seems to take my focus more onto the external.
Yeah.
The hope is on what am I anticipating? Whereas the waiting is the sitting in it.
mhm,
As you get there, and
mhm.
there's an, if you go to, what is it, the Isaiah, then that wait upon the Lord, shall renew their strength, shall mount their wings, I think, like,
Yeah,
recognizing that in God's grace, there is something within us
yeah,
to be present with something,
yeah,
which just feels something, it seems inward focused, but not in a bad, not in a selfish way, but more in terms of the depths of our own soul, the depths
Sure.
of the well within us,
Sure.
whereas hoping for me, which is also terrific, is looking outward towards something or someone or as well as God.
Yeah.
It's
So
no,
those
no
are-
longer you by yourself, you're connected in a
Right.
way, in
Yeah.
a different way.
I think that really captures nicely, Bridget, my experience of that being with my mom. Because when I was in the house waiting, there was that sense of, you know, we don't know how long we're gonna wait. And literally, I was there 10 days and I finally had to go back. I had jury duty, which you can't get out of in Chicago. And I had to go after 10 days, and we still had no power. But every day I would take her dog Butch. And Butch and I would walk, and I would look for signs of hope that maybe the power company would be getting near us, and it never did. But I think you're right. I waited with her inside, and but when I went out, I was just looking for just a little sign of hope, you know, that something might make this dreadful experience come to an end, faster than it was moving. That's helpful. Anybody else on difference between waiting and hoping? I think of, who is it? Wishing and hoping and praying.
I've got waiting here in limbo, you know, the old,
Hard background.
Bob Marley
Uh-huh.
song going on in my mind.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
On the backside of your paraphrases and translations, are some, we've already started with those, so, pick one that you'd like. I'm particularly interested in, either actions or turnings. I'm just really intrigued with that translation of, sin or iniquity as a turning and a twisting. What actions are turnings from what is right need to be named? What injustices need to be called out? Or what is your experience of waiting for God?
Well, right now, my experience is not being able to get things finished. Case in point, the history of Westminster Presbyterian Church, version 2. And, you know, my husband keeps saying, just stop all this research, just stop trying to find one more fact. Just finish it, just finish it. You know what needs to be said, just finish it. But the last part is the only part people are gonna read, because the years that they've been here, because they don't care about Moore Memorial or any of those people. And so they're gonna read that, and that has gotten me awake in the middle of the night and going back at my computer. And so I'm waiting to get it done. My husband's probably waiting more than I am.
Well, maybe this song can accompany you in this experience. Of waiting.
I can hope.
I know
I'm
this
sitting
lot.
on to you
I
guys.
kind of looked at Jack because when I was working on my dissertation in Chicago, Jack joined the faculty, and I was working in the history department at Northwestern and religion at Garrett, and I was doing this research, and you know, research is just, I just love it.
Me too.
I just love it. I don't want it to end, and I'd keep doing more, and you know. And you put, that was the days when, you know, I still had index cards, and I would just put them all around the floor, and Jack looked at me, he put him on my committee, he said, Liv, you've got to pick a day, right? You remember that? I remember that conversation. You told me you pick a day and you stop and you write. Because if you don't,
You should call me.
you should talk to Karen. He's a historian.
Oh, okay.
And he knew what he was talking about. Pick a day and start. So with that in mind, pick a day. And what else? Anybody other experience of waiting for God?
I can speak to the lament.
Mm-hmm.
Is probably sound a little ridiculous to most of them, but, I have 6 dogs, and one of them that I dearly, dearly love, over the last 6 months has become very, very aggressive and has started attacking, 2 of the other dogs. And, I mean, I've had him on Prozac, taking them off Prozac now, and I'm gonna be putting them on another, medication, but I love this dog so much, it's like, well, not all dogs, but, I can't get rid of him, I can't, and I'm saying, please, Lord, just fix him.
Fix it.
You know,
It's
help me to know what to do, because
It's heartbreaking.
it is, and I'm not putting him down, and I can't give him up, and I'm constantly protecting all the dogs, and so I need to retire soon so that I can spend 24/7. But at any rate, the lament is,
Yeah.
I love this dog so much,
Yeah.
and, when I commit, I don't have children, never wanted children, I wanted puppies, but, it's like, when's he gonna get fixed? What do I need
You're
to
waiting.
do?
Yeah, waiting and hoping. Anybody else?
Waiting for God is when it's a deep wait. It's a mixture of heavily frustrating and highly instructive. And it requires the gift of recall that comes with faith. Knowing that I had a teacher tell me many, many years ago that has been so instrumental. It's trusting the process, trusting the wait. It in of itself is its own thing. And, it's so hard sometimes because I know I'm anticipating, I know that on the other side of the wait, I'm going to be fine. But it's the process itself that doesn't never really feel fine. And I remember when I was waiting on my first call, and I was talking to a chaplain. She was my field ed supervisor. And, I would be lamenting in this waiting period. And the question would come, but where is your faith? If you're faithful, you wouldn't be frustrated in all this. And it's like, my faith allows me to know that I can be frustrated because I also know that there's something on the other side.
Right, you're still being held in God's hand,
Yeah.
even though you don't.
It's not the best feeling.
It doesn't feel like it, right?
But it has turned into, I've had a lot of waiting in my life. And even in its promptness, it's a space that I've learned to deeply appreciate and revere because I know God's presence is in it, even if it's not super tangible in the moment. Because that's just part of the process. So that's just an honest answer. in
No,
terms
it's
of
helpful,
What waiting.
a process, yeah. I learned about, I guess my first theologian was my mother, who was a gardener, and, and I'd come home from school, and the table, she worked at our kitchen table, she taught the women's Bible study, with the Presbyterian Women's Bible Study, and back in those days, the commentary available to her was do you remember the Layman's Bible Commentary? It was a little gray, kind of gray.
They were the Old Testament ones, and the Barclay was the New Testament.
I think did we publish them? I can't remember if we did publish them or not. But anyway, she had those on the table and she was waiting and she was studying and she, I just don't ever remember her ever, I don't know where my need to rush and always have something with me because I can't wait without. She waited and she loved to garden and she knew that there are just things you can't rush in the garden. And, Lane and I are trying seeds this year. Zinnias, we both love zinnias. We're trying zinnia seeds. And, I love these pictures the artist did on the different stages. I think the gardening image for me is so key to my understanding of God's work as creator and the work of creation and response to God's love. And that's directly from my mother who never wanted to rush anything. Least of all, when she was in the garden, I think the garden was her sanctuary, that and her children and her dogs, her dogs. So I have some seeds for you. I suggested in my leader's guide that maybe you could plant, but then I thought I'm just gonna bring the seeds. So, these are, Mexican sunflowers, and, a friend harvested them, from his garden and brought them to me.
You expected me to kill this? Beautiful thing?
We have, is Dana with us tonight?
Dana? Yeah,
You wanna take one to the Dana?
sure. Dana, I've got one for you.
Gotta try, let's try. And Mexican sunflowers are, they're pretty, they can get really, really tall. Be careful when you open the claw, because, the seeds are not in anything, they're just inside. Yeah. So you got 3 or 4, and, mine, I planted 2 seeds there. No, mine was more like a shrub. Mine was more like a shrub. I put it in the front flower bed and I started in a little pot first, and then one of those little pots, with the sides just fall away.
Oh.
And, so just be careful when you take them out. I'd start maybe in a little, if you have a little pot, or it can just be like a little clay pot too. The earth outside is still, I think, a little cold for planting. I'm not, did I miss anything? Oh. So, as you, think about this psalm this week, and planting, think about the, how waiting is hard for you, or in what ways can is hope a part of that waiting? This psalm writer reminds us that waiting is an act of hope, a way of being present with expectant anticipation of God's redemptive and imminent life, always with us and waiting to emerge again and again. I think if I have to think about my own practice of Lent, this year, it's been the chance to meet with you all every week, which has just been lovely and nurturing for me. But I think music has also been a part of my Lenten journey this year. And the chance to work with Julie has just been so wonderful. And then I've been listening to Paul Simon's 7 Psalms CD, and which I absolutely adore and recommend to you. He was on Colbert last Thursday night. And if you like Paul Simon, you can go on YouTube and listen to him playing this piece called Forgiveness. And then there's a 30-minute interview with Colbert that's just, it's remarkable. One of the lines in one of his songs is, "The seeds we gather from the gardener's glove live forever. Nothing dies of too much love." I just think this is a remarkable Paul Simon, album, and the way he does glockenspiels and acoustic guitars and bells, it sounds like the bells you might hear like at a monastery, and it's just the sounds, so it's like a gift. So as we close this evening, our last evening together, I'm gonna, play one of my favorite Taizé pieces for you, and it's just 4 minutes, so I'm just gonna ask you to use this time, to close out our time. You can journal, you can just sit, and you can receive it. It's the Taizé piece, Wait for the Lord, which I think is just, quite lovely. So, just find a comfortable spot, do what you want to do with this, and here we go. Where's your-
Rejoice in the Lord. God is
Let's pray. Gracious God, we are a grateful people that in our lives, we know that you wait with us. We're thankful for the hope that's in our hearts as we move to this week called Holy. Watch our steps, guide our hearts, strengthen our souls. As we pray in the name of your Son, Jesus, and all of God's people say. Amen.
Thank you so much. This is good, Rich.
It's been so good. Thanks to everyone. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
We're glad you joined us. Come back anytime. Glad to have you. Man, here's the Palm Sunday one.
Oh, I'd like that.
Yeah.
I know. A little electricity.
Yeah, a little electricity.
Crash boom bang up here.
I'm not sure that they're going to prefer.
Yeah.
And are they saying, what's it, something, they, yeah, I've got. Back,
Okay.
so, yeah, it's had to be on Sunday, I'm not to lead worship, but I'll be around or.
And then we came here, him sing.
Oh, you say him sing today?
Yeah.
Very good.
Right here. She
Oh,
did the hymn, had one pamphlet that had the history, the story behind it, and the people that wrote it. And then she had another one.
The price. Oh, thank you. This is one of these tops that are hiking tops. It kind of blends in, but it keeps you cool, but it won't let the sun in.
Yeah, yeah.
It keeps, it's sunscreen, so, I got two of these and I wear them out in the woods. I haven't been out there today, but I've been.
So Ray is, telling you, pull the plug, get it done.
So Ray,
Then we.
knows that, there's a lot of things I probably just shouldn't be digging into. Ray knows all of that too, so.
Tell the story, but tell the plan.
That's how, you know, I'm too concerned about what people are gonna say about it, but, you know, one thing that I think is important. I have a friend who teaches at Austin P who goes to the First Presbyterian Church in Clarksville. And, they had their,
I have a copy of it.
oh, I've got one too.
Yeah.
I got one. They used Amazon to print it and it's a paperback book.
Right.
And it's a little bigger than I would like. I would like a little smaller version, but I mean, a smaller size. But, you know, they had really good luck with them because unlike the Harwell history, which we didn't get rid of all of them. I mean, you know, Rich Piniel had been in charge of printing and they had those hardbound books. And they thought they were gonna sell them to everybody, every family in the village. And you know, Coleman put every name of every session member in that book. And the one thing I like about that book, it has an excellent index. And has a really good index, but then of course, none of the women have first names. So but I'm not putting any of those session members in there. And so, but you know, it's just this last part because I don't want to leave somebody out. That shouldn't, you know, I shouldn't be talking about.
I'll give one to, actually, the person I'm gonna give it to is, Will Wellman. Have you met Will on our staff? So he's on our staff for 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
And, but he's a serious gardener. Unlike me, who kills things.
Did you know you have a son? Well, you know, he was the Aaron over 70. And, in my younger years, when I was raising my children before I went back